Good morning. So today we're going to talk about monomials raised to a power, and we're going to look at when you divide monomials. Okay, so when we raise what that means, raising a monomial to another power, would mean that if we have a base and an exponent, but we're going to raise it to another power, m. Okay. So what we will do is we will multiply those exponents. So we will say x raised to the n times m. Okay, let me show you an example of this. Okay, why we can do that. This is the shortcut. Okay, if I say x squared raised to the third power, okay, then that means I am saying x squared times x squared times x squared. So I'm saying that 3 times. Okay, so if I was to do this, we learned this yesterday, then x squared times x squared times x squared, what would we do? We would add the exponents. So that would be x2 plus 2 plus 2. So this would be x to the 6th power. Okay, shortcut tells me x squared raised to the third power is I'm going to multiply those exponents together. Okay, so I would say x to the 2 times 3, and we get the same answer, right? Okay, so inside this parentheses, it would have to be bases multiplied together, okay, to be able to use this rule. So it must be bases multiplied together. Okay, so let's do some examples here. Okay, so here, what I mean by multiply together, that inside here must be multiplication. So this says x squared times y to the 4th, all of that raised to the 2nd power. So what I'll do is I'll say x squared times 2, y to the 4th times 2. So this will be x to the 4th times y to the 8th power. Okay, so what about this one here? This is negative 2 x cubed y to the 4th, all of that raised to the 4th power. Okay, so what is the exponent on negative 2? That's negative 2 raised to the 1st power. Okay, so this is going to be negative 2 raised to the 4th power, x raised to the 3 times 4 power, and y raised to the 4 times 4 power. Okay, so negative 2 raised to the 4th power is a positive 16, and this would be x to the 12th and y to the 16th power. Okay, let's do some more. Oops. Okay, so here we use our order of operations. So order of operations tell us what we're going to do first. So what we're going to do first is the raising to the power, what's in parentheses, right? So I would say x to the 4th times 2, so that would be x to the 8th power, y to the 3 times 2, which is y to the 6th power, and now I'm going to multiply it by xy squared, okay? So we're going to say x to the 8 plus 1, and y to the 6 plus a 2. So your answer here would be x to the 9th, y to the 8th power. Okay, let's change this. Let's make this a fraction here. Alright, so here I've got negative 1/2 x y squared, all of that raised to the 3rd power. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say negative 1/2, that is going to be raised to the 3rd power, x to the 1st power there, so x to the 1 times 3, because that's the 3rd power, and then y to the 6th power. So negative 1/2 cubed would be negative 1/2 times negative 1/2 times negative 1/2. Okay, so when you multiply that, that's going to be a negative 1 over 8 x cubed y to the 6th. Okay. Okay, so what about this one? This one applies all the rules that we know so far. Okay, so 3x squared raised to the 3rd power plus x to the 4th times 2x squared. So the first thing I need to do is my order of operations. So I need to simplify my parentheses, my exponent first. So this is going to be 3 to the 1st power. So this is going to be 3 raised to the 3rd power times x raised to the 6th power. Okay, so now I can go ahead and multiply this together. So that's a 1 times 2, which is a 2, and x to the 4th times x squared would be x, we add those, right? So it'd be x to the 6th. Okay, so 3 cubed is going to be 3 times 3, which is 9, 9 times 3, which is a 27. So this is going to be 27 x to the 6th plus 2 x to the 6th. Okay, so I'll add those together here. So 27 plus 2, because I can combine these now, they're like terms. 27 plus 2 would be a 29. Okay. Okay, so this is kind of a review of a little bit of geometry with our exponents. So remember when we have a rectangle, if I was to look at the perimeter of the rectangle, the perimeter is adding up all the sides, right? So if we were to add up all the sides, I would say length plus width plus length plus width, right? So your perimeter would be 2 times your length plus 2 times your width. Okay, the area of a rectangle, okay, the area of the rectangle would just be your length times your width. The perimeter of a triangle would just be to add up all the sides. And then your area of a triangle would be 1/2 your base times your height. Okay? And then if you have a circle, okay, the area of a circle is pi r squared. So the area of a circle is pi r squared. And then the circumference, we're not going to work on that one quite yet. The circumference of a circle is the same thing as the perimeter. Okay? So if I had this figure here, and I wanted, okay, so if I have this rectangle and I wanted to find the perimeter and the area, okay, the perimeter, remember, we'll add up all the sides, okay, so it'll be 2 times your length plus 2 times your width. Okay, so 2 times 10 would be a 20x, and 2 times 5x cubed would be a 10x cubed. You can't combine those, so that would be my perimeter. Okay. Now the area there would be your length times your width, so that would be 10x times 5x cubed. Okay, so 10 times 5 would be a 50, and x times x cubed would be x to the 4th. Okay. All right, let's do a circle now. For the circle here, I'll just want to find the area. And that does say 3x squared there. Okay, so if I wanted to find the area formula is pi r squared. Okay, so here my radius is given to me as 3x squared. Okay, so my answer here would be pi 3 raised to the 2nd power, so that's going to be a 9, x to the 4th. So if you rearrange this, you could write it as 3 pi x to the 4th. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to talk about dividing monomials. So dividing monomials means if you have like bases, and we'll be dividing them, you will subtract the exponents. Okay? So if I have x to the 5th over x cubed, those are the same base, so I can say x to the 5 minus 3. So that would be x squared. Okay, so what about here? I've got 2 bases, okay? So I've got x squared y to the 4th divided by x y squared. So I have 2 bases, but it's multiplication there, so these are just monomials. Okay, so I've got x squared over x, so that would be x to the 2 minus 1 times y to the 4 minus 2. So this will be x y squared. Okay. If you have a coefficient in front, in the front, you're actually going to divide those 2 numbers. So you're going to say x divided by 3 times x to the 5th minus 2. So 6 divided by 3 is going to give you a 2. And then x to the 5 minus 2 is going to give you a 3. Okay, so about this one, we've got negative 12 divided by negative 4. So we'll do the division there, negative 12 divided by negative 4, x to the 4 minus 2, and y to the 6 minus a 3. So negative 12 divided by negative 4 would be a positive 3. X to the 4th minus 2, so that would be x squared. And then y to the 6 minus 3, so 6 minus 3 would be a 3. Okay? Alright, let's do some putting this all together. Okay, so if I was to do this one here, I would say 2xy times 3x squared y cubed. So I need to simplify the numerator first. So I would need to multiply. So I need to multiply 2 times 3. So 2 times 3 would be a 6. X times x squared would be x to the 3rd power. And y times y cubed would be y to the 4th power. Okay, divided by negative 6x y cubed. So you're going to say 6 divided by negative 6. Now we can subtract, so we would say x cubed minus 1, and then y to the 4th minus a 3. 6 divided by negative 6 would be a negative 1. X to the 3 minus 1, which would be x to the 2nd power, and y to the 4th minus 3 would be just a y. Okay? Okay, so let's do this one here. So this is 2xy cubed times negative 2x to the 4th. Okay, so we'll multiply first. We'll do our numerator, so 2 times negative 2, which is a negative 4. X times x to the 4th would be x to the 5th. And y cubed all over 2 x squared y. Okay, so we now need to simplify. So negative 4 divided by 2 would be a negative 2. X to the 5th over x squared. We would subtract those, so 5 minus 2 would be x to the 3rd power. Y cubed over y would be y squared. Okay, so now those are actually like terms, so we will simplify. So negative 2 minus an 8 would be a negative 10, and don't touch the exponents when you add because they are like terms. So since they're like terms, we can add them together. Okay, we can, but we don't touch the exponents. Okay, alrighty. Last thing to remember. Okay, so the last thing to remember is 0 exponent. So anything to the 0 exponent is always a 1. Okay, so anything to the 0 exponent will always be a 1. Okay. Alright, so here I've got x to the 4th over x to the 4th. So if I was to subtract those, I would say 4 minus 4, and then y squared minus 1. So that would be x to the 4 minus 4, which is x to the 0, and y. And x, anything to the 0 power is always 1. So my answer would be just a y. Well, here you can think about it as simplifying a fraction. Those are the same things. That's x to the 4th over x to the 4th. So that would basically go away, right? That's just what that means. Okay, what about here? We've got 2x raised to the 0 power plus a 4. So that would be anything to the raised to the 0 power would just be a 1. So 2x to the 0 power would turn into a 1. So 1 plus 4 would be a 5. Okay? Alright, so I want you to finish those worksheets and have a great day.